Good afternoon. Hopefully you had something to eat and you're ready to go. My name is Fito Kahn. My company is Multimedia Partners. I am a web developer, contract trainer for Drupal and WordPress. I live here in Austin, Texas. Acquia training partner, and I am a contract trainer for ProMet Source Next Team. And my wife also suggested I mention that I am a father. I have 3 daughters, 4 grandchildren, and a musician and other stuff. So it's not all Drupal. I've been working with Drupal for about 8 years now, I believe. Being a contract trainer, it's been interesting and a lot of fun to learn who is using Drupal out there. And these are some of the companies that I've done training for. And you can see that while Drupal may not have a huge market share, they have some very big clients. So that kind of gives you an idea. Did I include? Oh, I didn't include you guys. I thought I did.
Yeah.
Are you there? Oh, there you are. Yeah. So we have some, we're representing some, there's some people here in the group today. So I decided to give this talk on Drupal modules because that's kind of how I got involved with Drupal. I was working at a seminary as their director of technology. We needed to update our content management system. We were using some type of proprietary system, and someone suggested Joomla, and so I started looking at Joomla and started working at Joomla, and then couldn't do what I needed it for doing. So I very quickly learned that I'm not going to be able to do this in Joomla. Someone else suggested Drupal. I looked at Drupal. I liked it, and one of the main reasons I liked it is because I'm not a coder. I come into Drupal more as an HTML, CSS person, so front-end site builder. And what I liked about Drupal was the fact that I could get something started and then bring modules in. So I started realizing that was one of the strengths, or one of the powerful things that Drupal has is the breadth of modules. And so I jumped into Drupal and I've been using Drupal ever since. So this talk's going to focus primarily on modules for Drupal 8. At the end of the session, we'll have some time for question and answer, and I'm going to open it up so that people can suggest, throw out additional modules that maybe they have used and have been great for them. So, favorite modules, and I've got some here on the board. We'll add a few more and we'll talk about them. And so I'm hoping that what you get out of this is that you realize that there's probably a module out there for you so that you don't have to code. How many people here are new to Drupal 8? I'm just curious to see. I want to make sure this is the right audience. Okay, cool. Don't lie. So this talk is for you guys that are new to Drupal 8. So a very quick history of Drupal 8. It was released in 2015, and something new in Drupal is that they're trying to come up with versions every 6 to 7 months. I think now is the schedule, something like that. So we should have seen Drupal 8.3 in April, and hopefully we'll see 8.4 in October. Drupal core has, in Drupal 8 has 75 modules. In Drupal 7 there was 30 core modules. And that's kind of significant because what the Drupal community decided was there's some modules that are out there that people use a lot. We should just include them in core so they don't have to download so many modules. So they started this to identify what modules people wanted or were using, and they started adding those to Drupal 8. And then along the way, they added some additional modules to make Drupal 8 even better. And so we do have more modules now, but that's really a good thing because now we don't have to worry about downloading as many modules. So what are modules? For the newbies in the group, Drupal Module is a collection of files containing some functionality, and it contains PHP and twig files. Because it's a module, it can use anything within Drupal core. So we're not going to get real technical. We're not going to talk about hooks and the Drupal API. But what you guys need to know is that modules are how you extend Drupal. Modules add functionality to your site. So you start with the basic core group of modules, and then you just bring in whatever modules you need. Again, since I'm not a coder, I'm not going to try to write a module. I'm going to go out there and look and see if there's a module that does what I need, bring it in, and then if I have to tweak it, hopefully there's some configuration that I can do. And if I have to, then there's ways that you can modify the module. Drupal is written in PHP, so you either learn PHP or you find somebody who knows PHP and you can have them modify the modules. So there's basically 3 types of modules. There's the core modules that come with Drupal, maintained by Drupal. Then there's contributed modules that you can download from drupal.org. And you go to one place to download all your modules. You don't have to worry about, like in WordPress, where the module is or who did it. Everything is there. Hopefully those modules have been tested and vetted. And Drupal takes a little bit different approach than WordPress. Does anybody here use WordPress or has used WordPress before? Yeah, we've got some WordPress people. Okay, so just as a side, in WordPress, if I'm looking for a calendar module, I can Google calendar modules for WordPress, and I may find 3 or 4 or 5 different calendar modules. I then have to decide which one of those is the one I want to use. And so I have to kind of start reading about how many times it's been downloaded, who's used it, how current is it, does it work with my version of WordPress. Drupal takes a little bit different approach. Their approach is let's make our calendar module the best calendar module that it can be. And so instead of having a bunch of different calendar modules, there's maybe one. So that's a very different philosophy. So I think that's one of the things that kind of sets Drupal apart from WordPress is the way they handle their modules versus WordPress's plugins. And then obviously the other difference is that in WordPress you can get a plugin and it's free, and then you need some functionality and it's available, but you have to pay for the upgraded version of the plugin. Whereas in Drupal, modules are free. Right? You just download them from drupal.org. So every module in Drupal has a project page, and this is the first page that you get to when you're looking at deciding if you want to download a module. And it has a lot of good information. This is the place that you want to go to before you download the module to make sure, one, that there's a version of this module for your implementation of Drupal, whether it's 7 or 8. But in addition, there's a lot of other good information. You all have probably seen this before if you've downloaded a module. Who maintains the module, what issues are there with that module, things like that. So I like to always look at bug reports and issues, especially if this is a module that I'm thinking about using on my site. I want to know, well, who's maintaining this module, right? Because all of these modules are maintained by volunteers. Nobody's getting paid to do this. So if my module is if my website is going to rely on this module, I want to make sure that it's going to be supported. So this particular module is called Live Weather, and we're going to look at it in a second. It has one maintainer, and he's been maintaining this for about a year. And there aren't too many issues open right now. There's 2 bugs, 4 open issues. That's not too bad, depending on when these issues were opened, if he's responded to these or not. But always look at your project page. before you start. And people that are new to Drupal, I know I did this. You start wanting to download all these modules and trying them out, and eventually you end up with 200 modules on your website. So sometimes this kind of eliminates some of that. You can say, oh yeah, no, this is not going to work. Sometimes the modules are experimental, or they're under, they're not ready. So as of June 2nd, which was yesterday, I went to the drupal.org website and did kind of just a search on modules. And there's 2,522 Drupal 8 modules that are actively maintained. Those were the search results that came back, compared to 8,285 Drupal 7 modules. And that number, the Drupal 8 number, has actually gone up quite a bit. But again, Drupal 8's been around now for 2 years, so hopefully we'll see that number keep growing. There's a lot of Drupal 7 modules that are being ported or converted to Drupal 8. There's a website called BlueSpark, and you can visit this site, and this is a site that kind of keeps an update on how projects are, where they're at, I guess, in development. And apparently these stats are updated automatically. And so if you were to go to that site, it looks something like that. So you can see the module use now is in core. There's a couple of modules that have already been released. There's the release date. So this is kind of a nice link or a page to go to if you're thinking about using a particular module and you want to know, well, what's the status of the module. This in one page has a whole bunch, and you can do searches for it and find out all kinds of good information. Drupal 8 introduced this kind of concept of experimental modules, and we'll talk about some of these experimental modules when we start looking at modules. But there's some modules there that we can turn on, and they're turned off by default. But if you look at your Drupal 8 website, if you look at the modules there, there's some there. And the reason that they did this is right here in the second paragraph. Experimental modules allow site builders and contributed project authors to test out functionality that might eventually be included as a stable part of Drupal core. Use them at your own risk. This is kind of scary too. Also keep in mind that the experimental module might be removed from Drupal core if it turns out to not be a good fit. Up until now, I don't think they've ever done that. But you'll see when we start talking about modules that there's a couple modules there that we might want to talk about turning on our site. So we'll get to that in a sec. So I've come up with some of my favorite modules, and I have a whole bunch, but I kind of tried to narrow it down into these particular categories. So modules that will make site admins happy, modules that will make site builders happy, marketing folks, Google, and some that will make everybody happy. And actually there's a couple of modules that would probably fit into several of those different categories. So we'll look through these, and what I'm going to do is go through these very quickly and talk about the module and then what it does. And then if we have time at the end, after I've gone through all the modules, we can bring up a site and look at some of these modules if you have questions about configuration or how does it work. I tried to install every single module on my Drupal 8 site, and so far I think I was able to get all of them, and the site did not crash, so that's a good thing. So I think we'll have time for maybe a couple of questions about those modules. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail as to how you install them and all of that, because some of them require some additional configuration. If you all went to Ben's presentation on Drupal SEO, I don't know if anybody went to that. It's very good. He actually mentions a couple of modules that I also recommend, which is a good thing. That kind of validates I think I'm on the right path as far as modules that we would like to have on our site. Some of the modules that I'm going to talk about are just one-offs. You may not ever need the module, but you may know somebody who could use that module, or you might at some point think, oh yeah, you talked about this module. So the hope is that you'll learn that there's at least a couple modules out there that you didn't know about and that maybe you might want to use. So we're going to jump in and not in any particular order, because I just didn't really know how to order these. The first one is coffee, and Ben talked about coffee. There's actually an add-on to coffee called Coffee Extras, and the Coffee Extras module actually just adds some additional shortcuts for things like taxonomy and some other things that the regular coffee module may not pull. But what the coffee module allows you to do, in case you didn't see the Ben's presentation, is it's a keyboard shortcut that opens up a little window, and then you can type in a word, and it'll start to search through and find what you're looking for, and then it displays it, and then you just click on what it is. So in this case, if I'm looking for taxonomy, I'm on my website, I want to update my taxonomy, maybe I want to add a term to my taxonomy. I type the word tax, it brings up some suggestions. One of them is add vocabulary. So I can very quickly, with a keyboard, open up a window, type a word, get to exactly where I need. I don't have to be clicking and dragging. So this is for people that like to use, they're used to using keyboard shortcuts. I'm more of a point, click, and drag person, but there's a lot of people out there that like shortcut, right? So this is a great module for doing something like that. So if you are one of those people, you might want to check out Coffee and Coffee Extras. Okay, this next one, Devel Generate, Devel Hint, and Web Profiler. When you install Devel, which is a module that developers use for working on a site, while you're building the site, you want to have some of these tools. So what Devel does is it gives you some tools for figuring out issues or problems with your website. Devel Generate is a kind of a sub-module of Devel that lets you create content for your site. One of the problems that people that are building websites sometimes have is that they need content to test out the site. If I'm creating a website and I need 50 users that are going to have different roles, and I have 3 or 4 different content types that I only want certain roles to see, then I need content to test that out. And so what Devel Generate content does is it very quickly allows me to generate comments, terms, content types, taxonomy, users. And not only will it do users, but it'll do a picture of the user. So if I want to make sure that, if I want to create a view of users, and I want to make sure they all have a picture, and I want to make sure that the picture is a certain size, how do I do that if I have I want to test the users? So Devel Generate will create all of those things for me. If I have a content type, let's say I have a job posting content type on my website, because I'm going to be listing jobs. So my job content type has a beginning date, an ending date, a job description, maybe a drop down that has whether that job is part-time, full-time, or seasonal. So I've created this content type. Devel Generate will create content based on that content type, and it will create a date beginning date, ending date, part-time, full-time. So I can test out all of these things with this content. It's a great tool. And then when I'm done, I hit a button and it'll delete all of that stuff, so I start with a fresh, clean site for my client. So, very useful module. Web Profiler gives you all kinds of information on your site. How many page caches, how long it took to cache a page, how many database queries did it take to render a certain page. So up here at the top, this will show up at the bottom of your page if you enable Web Profiler. And it gives you all kinds of good information. I mean, it tells you what version of Drupal you've got, what version of PHP, how many modules you have installed on your site, how many are active. So all kinds of cool information. And so you turn this on, you can kind of check things out, then you turn it off. You don't want to have this running, obviously, on a live site. This module is something that you would use while you're developing your site or you're playing around with the site, you want to check things. But it gives you some really good information. If you need to see arrays and the elements of an array, you use develkint, and that'll display all kinds of good information on what's happening in the background of your site. Admin toolbar and admin toolbar extras. Ben talked about that. That's usually the first module that I install on my Drupal site. It gives you a really nice drop down, so you're not pointing and clicking and having to go all the way through. So you enable both admin toolbar and admin toolbar extra tools. And looks like I missed something here. Clear cache. But yeah, you've got clear cache. You can clear the cache. You can run cron. You can do all kinds of stuff from your admin toolbar. I'm guessing that's probably what a lot of you all are used to using if you've been working with a Drupal site. Have you all installed this before? Has anybody installed this? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, anybody not installed it? Yeah? Okay. So admin toolbar. Okay, so this one's kind of just a one-off. I found this one, I thought, well, this is kind of cool. And I'm currently working on a website that originally was in Drupal 7 for the Austin Jazz Alliance. I also run the Austin Jazz Alliance. So I did this website in Drupal 7, and then I thought, well, I want to learn WordPress a little bit more. Let's see if I can duplicate my Drupal 7 site in WordPress. So I migrated and moved everything over to WordPress. And so the past couple of years, I've been running the Austin Jazz Alliance on a WordPress site. So now I'm saying, okay, now I want to bring it all back and do this now in Drupal 8 so I can practice my skills in Drupal 8. And I thought this would be a cool module to add to my Drupal 8 module. So I found this module. I will warn you though that if you look it up, if somebody will look up live weather, I think it's experimental or development or use at your own risk, or I don't know, something. I seem to remember something like that. So, but it installed fine on my D8 site, and it works great. This is a screenshot of what I was doing yesterday. So it was, but I'm just curious. Can you look it up?
Stable release and covered by the Security Advisory Committee. So
okay, so we've got a stable release. We got a green light.
Green shield.
All right.
1.2.
Cool. All right. So. Again, you may not ever need this, but it's kind of nice to know that there's a module out there that will do that. And it was very easy to install, and then you just put in your zip code, and it puts it in a block, creates a block for you, and just put it in a block, and you're good to go. Okay, moving on. Another one another one-off. You may not ever use this, but you may know, someone who likes to cook and they want a recipe website, and you can build them up a really nice Drupal 8 site using this recipe module. Again, this one was very easy to install. A little bit of configuration, and you're good to go. All right, now we're going to get into some modules that I'm surprised are not in core, and I don't know why they are not in core. And I think that Ben talked about this one as well. So you all know that when you install a Drupal site and you start creating content, you start seeing these funny URLs, right, with node numbers. And obviously that's not good for SEO. It's really not good for anybody. But Drupal creates these node numbers. And so to make things a little bit more readable, you should automatically install this module, Path Auto. You're going to have to install not just Path Auto, but there's a couple of other modules that we'll talk about that come with Path Auto. But what Path Auto allows you to do, which is very cool, is it'll automatically create a URL that's readable. But what I think some people don't realize is that you can also add categories inside that URL. So if I have a website that has several sections, and let's say that I have a section for business, a section for sports, a section for entertainment. I can add the word sports or services or entertainment in my path as part of my URL. And once I do that, then I have all kinds of cool things I can do. I can say on this sidebar, if you're on the business section, right, if the URL says business in it, display something over here related to business. If you're in the music section in the URL, display something about music. I can say I want my URL to have the date of the article in the URL in addition to the title. So I can have a URL that has 2017 / and then my favorite song or whatever the title is. So you can do some really cool things with Path Auto using Path Auto and another module called tokens. So we'll talk about tokens in a second. But Path Auto is very, very easy to set up. You install it, and then you basically come over here and you click on this Patterns tab, and you create a pattern. And you'll create a pattern based on whatever content types you have. So if you have a job postings content type, and I want the word jobs to show up for my job postings content type, I create a pattern that has the word jobs in it, and then I put a token for the title and generate that. So once I create that pattern, I delete any old aliases that I might have. I generate new patterns based on whatever that string is that I've created, and Drupal will go out and clean everything up and create new URLs for just that specific content type. And you can do that not just for content type, but for taxonomy or for other things. So Path Auto is actually pretty powerful if you know that you can use it to do things like that.
Just to throw it out there, deleting the aliases is probably a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Then people lose all the redirects and bookmarks and things like that.
Well, that's a problem. You want to do this you don't want to do this on a live site or because of that problem, right? Again, this is like development stuff. You do it when you're building a site. You don't want to do this on a live site, like Chris says, because if people have bookmarked their favorite page on your site, and you say, oh, well, I'm going to change all my aliases to have something a little more SEO friendly. So you've just done that, but you've just wiped out the old URL, and so they're not going to be able to find it.
Right? If you have the redirect module, you can have it auto-generate redirects.
Correct.
The delete aliases deletes them out.
Yeah.
It takes them out of the database, so they're not there.
They're not there to point to.
So
right.
you'd get a page not found error. So by trying to help SEO, you're going to kill it.
Right. So you have to get the page not found module to fix. Obviously, you end up having to do all these other things. So the best thing is don't do this on a live site.
Don't hit delete aliases.
Right. Yeah. Do it. Get it all right. Get it all perfect. Then launch your site. Yeah. You've got it all down. Don't do this on a live site. SEO checklist. This is actually a really cool module. I don't know if anybody, some of y'all may have seen this presentation. It was earlier today. But what this module does is it checks your site and it gives you some suggestions as to how you could better improve the SEO chances for your particular site. So it gives you it goes through and it gives you prompts and it gives you ideas of things that you could do. It doesn't do them for you. It just says, oh, but you should probably turn on Google Analytics. You should probably, matter of fact, here's an example. If I click on Basic SEO Part 1, Clean URLs, I click on that, it'll go through and it'll look at my site and it'll say, well, you should probably enable clean URLs, which is checked. You should probably install and enable the redirect module and then configure it. It's telling me, yeah, you've got path auto installed, so that's checked. And it's configured, and looks like there's already a path created. So you go through each one of those tabs, and it will give you suggestions as to what you should do to improve the SEO for your site. It's a very handy module. Available for both Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. And actually, what's kind of cool about this module is that it gives you, if you don't know how to configure the redirect module, it says see Drupal 8 SEO Chapter 3, page 43. There's a PDF version of that, and then there's also a hard copy. So you can get the book, go to Chapter 3, and there's steps there as to how to do each one of these. So any place that you see instructions, you can pull up the PDF and look at that, or you can check out the book. So it's a pretty good, cool module. And there was another one that you mentioned that I wrote down that actually displays what Google is going to show when you type in something. Do you remember the name of that module? It was live site, real site, or what's that?
Real-time SEO.
Real-time SEO. Another great module, yeah. Real-time SEO. Put that on here.
That module's in the checklist.
What's that?
That module is in the checklist. It's on.
Really?
It's one of those checkboxes
Yeah.
in this module.
It's there. It's not in my list. I'm gonna be developing this list and then adding to it, and it'll be on my website. There'll be links to it as well. So all of these will be on there in case you want to get to them. But yeah, that's a good module. Okay, content moderation and workflows. So these are modules that are actually in Drupal core. They're disabled by default. But if you have a situation where you need content to flow from one user to another before it gets published, then you might want to take a look at content moderation and workflows. So an example is I've got a website, and I've got some interns that I've hired to type in some content for me, and I want them to type the content in, and then I want them to send it to me so I can review it. And then if I like the content and it looks good, I want to send it off to the legal department so the legal department can review it. And then if the legal department reviews it, I want that content to then go to a publisher that can say, okay, it's ready to publish, and get a button and publish the content. So I've got a workflow. So I need to be able to moderate the content, send it back, no, that's wrong, send it back, no, change this, send it back. I need to be able to moderate the content, and then I need to be able to at some point publish it. So what content moderation and workflows does is it allows you to do that. You can create transitions of your content. So notice here, create a new draft, and you can go from draft to published, or from published to draft. You can go back and forth. I can go from draft, published to published. I can go from published to archive. I can create transitions that I want my content to go back and forth from. I can also decide who has the role, who can do these things, right? Who can create drafts, who can publish, who can archive. And then I can also decide, well, what pieces of content do I want to apply this content moderation workflow to? Do I want to do that for my job postings, for my articles, for my basic pages? So I have a lot of flexibility. But it's really nice if in your situation you have that need. Right now, everybody's going to need that, but and I don't know in this group whether you all are developers, you're end users, but I wanted to point this module out because I've had to use this in certain situations. And you just turn it on in Drupal core. BigPipe. So BigPipe is another one of these modules that is in core, invented at Facebook. It's disabled by default, but you can turn it on. And when you turn it on, they also recommend that you enable the dynamic page cache. But basically, this increases it'll speed up the time that it takes for your page to be seen in a browser. I see here it results in hugely improved front-end performance. So what it does is it starts to, I think what it does, and maybe Chris, you or one of you guys can explain it a little bit better, but instead of pushing everything out at one time, it starts to push things out like in placeholders, and so the page starts getting built slowly but quicker, if that makes any sense, because it's pushing things out. So it says it allows us to flush the initial page first, or flush out, and then stream the replacements for the placeholders. So it puts in placeholders, it starts to send stuff, and then it fills in those placeholders. And that's probably not a very good technical explanation. So maybe somebody that understands BigPipe. Is that?
That's right.
I'm right? Good, thank you.
Are you saying if you use BigPipe, you got to also use dynamic?
Yes. They are recommending that you enable dynamic page cache.
Okay.
And so I do what they say.
We've not used BigPipe on a project yet. Has anybody actually used it?
I've used it. Have you used it? Yeah.
Yeah, it helps if you have pages that contain multiple views, or if you have any sort of custom pieces that actually make like external API calls or stuff like that. You can set it up to just work with BigTime, so it'll send all the static parts to your page first, and then it'll fill in the rest. So it actually, depending on what you're doing, it can be a huge performance increase or like
Minimal.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So
It
you,
depends on kind of how crazy you're getting with how you've set up caching and what sort of shenanigans you're pulling.
did you have to do a lot of configuration for it?
No, actually, for the most part, I'd say like 90% use case works out of the box. You can just turn it on and it'll just work with everything that just is in.
Cool.
So you're doing custom things.
Drupal 8 caching is like there should be a talk on just Drupal 8 caching, because there's so many things that you can cache now. And it's very confusing, at least for me, because you can cache views, you can cache blocks, you can use varnish, you can use, BigTime. I mean, there's all these different things that you can use to cache a site. And then you cache it for anonymous users. It's just, there's a lot of stuff. So maybe one day when I understand it all, I'll come together with some kind of presentation. Yeah, caching is a big thing.
They have talks out there on it.
And I'll have to learn. I'll have to go out and just absorb it all, because it's like it's very Greek to me. All right, multilingual support. So this is kind of a cool set of modules. Again, these are modules that are in core, but you can enable these, and all of a sudden you have a multilingual website, or multilingual ready, I should say. But it used to, Drupal 7, take something like 30 modules to do this. So you really couldn't do this very easily in Drupal 7. In Drupal 8, you've got 4 modules that are already there. You just check them off, and you check those off, and you need a site in Spanish, you've got the basically the framework. All of your menus, your admin menus, are now in whatever other language you select. So if I select Spanish, French, German, English, Swahili, I can install those languages. I think there's over 160 languages, or maybe more. So I select the languages I want on my site, I enable those, and now my admin menu, I select the language and the admin menu changes to that. And I can also, not just the admin menu, but I can also check, there's other settings that I can go in and check. So if we have time, I'll show you that. But I created an article in English, and I installed Spanish and English translations. And then I very quickly just copied the stuff that I had in English, put it in Google Translate, which you probably shouldn't do, but I didn't want to have to sit there and translate it. And then I pasted it into the Spanish content for that same article. And then I logged out, logged in Spanish, clicked on the article, and there was my article in Spanish. So it makes it very easy for websites that have other languages to now say, okay, here's this content in English. You speak Spanish, so you can log in, hit Spanish, and all the content's going to be there, so you can understand what's going on and just translate this content for me. So it's cool. It's really nice that you have that capability now in Drupal 8 to have multilingual on your site. So we'll take a look at that if we have time. What time is? When is this over? How much time do I have?
15 minutes, 17 minutes.
At 2:30?
15 minutes.
I have 15 minutes left?
I think they're an hour
Yeah.
long.
Okay, I have 15 minutes left. Okay. Move through these. Token. So Token is a module that you have to download if you want to use PathAuto.
Oh, yeah.
And what Token does is it gives you some additional tokens that are not supported by Core, as well as a UI for browsing tokens. So Drupal has all of these tokens, right? And these tokens are things like current date, current page, current user, node, node title. And I can use those tokens in a lot of places in Drupal. But the way we're using them here is we're using these in conjunction with PathAuto, so that when I'm creating my URL, I can place these tokens in my URL. So I can say for job postings, I want the URL to have jobs in it, / maybe the current date or the date that job was posted, / the title of the job. And that's what my URL would show up. So I would use tokens to do that. Again, it's very easy to do once you have token installed to create your aliases. Responsive image. This is another core module that's turned off. But if you're creating a site and you've got certain breakpoints in your theme, if you're creating a custom theme for your site and you've created some breakpoints, you want these images to respond to these certain breakpoints. So when you're looking at it as a tablet, you want the image to look at a certain size. When you look at it on a phone, you want the image to be a certain size. So you can use responsive images for responsive image module to do that. And so you create your breakpoints, and this module will look and see what breakpoint group you're using. It's got a little drop down. It'll look at your theme, and if your theme has a breakpoints.yaml file, it'll grab those media queries or those breakpoints and show them there, and then you can select from those breakpoints how you want it to display. And then you have this fallback image. So fallback image says select the smallest image style you expect to appear in this space. The fallback image style should only appear on the site if an error occurs. So this is a nice module to use if you're wanting to deal with images and having them be responsive. This practice makes websites load faster on mobile devices because the image sizes are optimized for mobile devices. This is different than fluid images, which are large images scaled with CSS, and that's kind of the big difference here. Okay, Migrate Suite. Again, these are in Drupal core, and these are just a set of modules that you can use if you want to, or if you have the need to migrate from, let's say, Drupal 6 to Drupal 8 or Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. I think there's also some other tools that you can use to migrate things like views. You can migrate users, taxonomies, all kinds of things that you can migrate. You all ever use Migrate? I'm sure you guys have used Migrate, but what have you used it for?
We're migrating a Joomla site over to Drupal.
Okay.
So we're
Content?
a module that uses the tools in the Migrate Suite and the Migrate API.
Okay. Nick, have you used it before? No? Chris,
Not
you used it
successfully.
Content.
before? Content? Anybody else used it before? So it's there. I know there's also like a WordPress to Drupal module.
Oh yeah, I've done that one.
You've done that one? Paragraphs. Paragraphs is a very, very cool module, very popular now. Paragraph gives you cleaner data structures, so you give more editing power to your end users. And what's changing is the way that we think of content. It used to be that, we were like a content type is like a basic page, title, body, done. Article, title, body, whatever, done. But now, if you look at the way websites are being developed, there's this whole new kind of look where you've got this flowing, one page, and you've got just different things happening. You might have some content across the top, and then an image, and then another content, and then maybe 3 images, and then maybe a video with some content, and it's all kind of just flowing on one page. So paragraphs kind of lets you do that. And the other cool thing is that paragraphs lets the content editors decide on these things. So it exposes them to some tools that in the past they'd have to have admin rights to do. And so I'll give you an example of that. Okay, if you replace the standard body field of a node with a paragraph field, then you can use any number of text, image, or video fields and still keep them all responsive. All content is saved in Drupal entities, so it's fully compatible with Search API, views, and services integrations. Paragraph types can also include custom option fields and do conditional coding in your CSS. I mean, it's probably easier to see, this might make things make a little more sense. So I've created let's say a page, a basic page, and so I've got a title and a body, but then I have some additional things that I can add here. And I can create these pages, and I can create, if I have an example of I may not have pages, maybe in my demo, but you can move these paragraphs up and down. So I can give a client, let's say a client says, well, I want to have a landing page, and I want to be able to have either a picture on the left with some text, or maybe 2 pictures and some text on the right. But maybe I also want to have, for a section of the site, just some video. So I can create these paragraphs, and each one of those will be a separate paragraph, and they just decide what they want on this page. They create the content, and then they can move these things around. I can grab this, move it down, and I can grab another paragraph and move it up. So I highly recommend that you take a look at the paragraphs module when you're designing your sites. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and if your site is going to require content editors to be messing with the site, this gives them a lot of power, but it's kind of controlled power, and it can be restrictive. But that way, they can do a lot more stuff without you having to do it again.
So you didn't have that ability to move stuff around? Would you have to rebuild it then, or
No.
how would you do that?
No, so I've got, let's say I'm doing this page,
Right.
and I want to add, so here's a paragraph slideshow.
Right.
So I can have a slideshow in the middle of my page. And then I have some text underneath it, and then I have a picture. But then, let's say somebody comes to you and says, you know what, that slideshow doesn't work where it is. Move it down and put the content on top.
Yeah.
So because each one of these is a paragraph, I just come over here and I say, okay, let me grab the text, click and drag, put it up here and move the slideshow, click the slideshow, and now just rearrange everything, hit save, and it's done.
But if you didn't have that paragraph installed, you couldn't do that, right?
Right.
You have to just rebuild it or redo it?
If you didn't have it, you'd have to, I mean, there's other ways that you could do it. Right? There's other ways that you can do it. There's other ways to do it.
Okay.
This makes it really easy for the,
Simpler.
it's a lot simpler, especially if it's a content person that's not an admin. Right, again, I'm always thinking
Yeah.
front end, site builder solutions.
So this is good for a non-coder?
Yeah, exactly right, exactly right. Panels is another one that's good for non-coders. You know, panels that you do, this is another module. This module does all kinds of cool things, but an example of how you might want to use panels. Let's say that you have a situation where you have a website, but you want to have a separate landing page because you're going to have a special, and so you want the landing page to look different. You can create a separate landing page with a separate URL that you can give to marketing, and marketing can then promote that URL for whatever reason. And it's got maybe the same header, same margin, same logo, all of that, but the inside, right, the content, instead of on your website you have two sidebars and a content, I can create a landing page that has just all content and then maybe something, a picture or something. I might create a different layout for anonymous users. So if somebody's looking at my website, they see it one look. As soon as they log in, I can give them a totally different look. I can create a variant of my page. So that's kind of what panels allows you to do, is to do that in a really easy drag and drop manner. You don't have to, again, do any kind of coding. Really popular in Drupal 7. I don't know how many people are using it in Drupal 8.
Just a fair warning, it's broken in 8.
Okay, yeah.
So
well, that's probably why they're not using it.
We put it on one site and we're not putting it on the next ones.
And that's a problem, right, with a lot of these. A lot of these are still kind of in development. This one requires a couple of other tools or other modules. So again, read the documentation, go to the site, check it out. If people are having problems with it, you're going to see issues, you're going to see bugs, you're going to see things. So, as you're building your site, you can decide whether you want to use these or not. Here's kind of just a quick example. I can create a variant here. I just click on Add Variant. How it can be used with organic groups. It integrates with views. It uses context. It works great in 7. Now, I wouldn't use it in 8. So. Okay, so how are we doing on time? We got 5 minutes, right? So, questions, and then also if any of you all have any modules that you think you like, that you've used before, that you think people would want to know about, there's hundreds of them. So are there any out there? I wrote down real-time SEO, taxonomy manager is a good one. If you've got a whole bunch of different taxonomies and you want to be able to move them up and down. Now these are for Drupal 7. There is a Drupal 8 version, but Taxonomy Manager allows you to organize your taxonomies. Web Form Random, available for Drupal 7, maybe a Drupal 8 version coming out, maybe. We've got the maintainer of Drupal of this module here. Web Form Random, what it does is, you want to explain what it does?
It randomizes web form elements. If you want to have
Randomizes
like a 10-question survey and the survey to ask the questions in a different order each time someone takes
Every
the
time
survey,
somebody takes the survey.
it displays the elements at random.
All right.
Okay.
Random, Web Form Random, available for Drupal 7. If enough people request Drupal 8, maybe there'll be one. Feeds Tamper.
Be there anyway.
Feeds Tamper. Anybody used Feeds Tamper before? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a free Feeds Tamper. Yeah. You like it?
Speed Tamper is Lifesaver.
It
Lifesaver.
is.
All right, so let's explain, what does FeedTamper do?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a between your input of what you're sending to the feeds module and where it creates your content or taxonomy or whatever. So you can take, say someone wrote a date as like 6/3/17. You can take that and feeds tamper will change that to a Unix timestamp and then it'll put it into a Drupal date field so it's taking information that may be messy or not the way you need it for Drupal and tampering with it in such a way that Drupal can use it. Or say you have one cell in a spreadsheet that is a comma separated list of 5 taxonomy terms separated by a comma or separated by a pipe. You can go in feeds tamper and say explode by comma or explode by pipe, and it'll take those and make an array rather than having one taxonomy term with a bunch of commas in it. It'll have your 5 different terms. So it'll join things and put them together. It'll take multiple fields and put them all into one field. Like if you have a first name, last name field, but you only have a name field in Drupal, it can take 2 fields and combine those into one field and tamper with so it just takes the input and changes it in a way that will work for Drupal.
All right. Fences. Available for Drupal 7, nothing for Drupal 8 yet. No D8. Anybody use fences? Anybody heard of fences?
Yeah, we have it on some sites.
Okay. What does it do?
It just allows you to get in there and add CSS to elements better because it wraps them in like a fence. That's what they
It
call
wraps
it.
the elements in like, is it a div or something, or?
Yes, and it just makes it easier to get to
Okay.
for
For
front-end people.
CSS folks.
So
to
You can
back-end
just-
people install it and front-end people use it.
You can give a unique CSS ID to one particular field.
Oh, cool.
And the fence will go around just that field.
Just that one.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to,
It's all point and click.
all point and click. That's what I like. Okay, anybody else have any other modules that they want to throw out there that are kind of cool? What's that?
Rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole is really cool.
Rabbit hole.
So if you're using paragraphs and custom content types to build your landing pages and stuff, Rabbit hole lets you decide how an individual entity or bundle should behave when it's viewed on its own page. So you can build these components and paragraphs, but they can make them not viewable on their own. So then you can also set up like redirects. So you can decide whether to show like a 404 page, redirect them somewhere, a view, a message. So you can, what we've done before is like if somebody somehow ends up on an actual component, it just redirects them to the landing page that it's on. So Rabbit Hole is,
For D7, D8?
I know there's a D7 version, I'm not sure if there's a D8 version.
There's a D8, I've seen a D8 version.
Okay. D8. Cool. Okay, we are actually done, right on time. So thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. The email's right up there. And thank you.